So the previews are in, and it looks to be pretty mixed. Surprise, surprise. In my previous video, I had discussed some game features that I thought looked good and some that I found to be a little concerning. And now looking at these reviews, I feel that I've hit the nail on the head. And these reviews had just echoed my thoughts and suspicions that I've had about the game. To start off on a positive note, it seems that reviews are praising both the city and the story. Damn, I wonder where I heard that. Number 1, city, good. Secondly, story, good. In a review written by VGC's Jordan Middler, he applauds Gotham City's stunning look, the characters and the story direction, and he gives props to the notion that it's not trying to be an Arkham game, rather it's trying to set itself apart from that. Another review coming in from Inverse's Joseph Yaden shares similar thoughts on the game and says that, quote, it also just might surpass the Arkham trilogy as well, all thanks to its captivating city. I'm not sure about all that, but let's keep moving, let's keep going on. Some other positive things that have been said in general about this game is the commitment to the uniqueness of each hero and the skins that come along with it. And a lot of the YouTubers that were either invited to play the game or able to get a code to play the game shared the same thoughts as well, but not all of them. Although the game did receive a lot of high praises, there are more than a few things that most people reviewing the game took issue with. And the general consensus is that combat overall is just iffy. In that same article from VGC written by Jordan Middler, he thought that there was, quote, something about the combat that leaves us wanting. He also added that, quote, we weren't quite able to dislodge the notion of pressing Y when an enemy attacks us in order to counter them. Mitchell Saltzman from IGN says that fights quickly started to feel routine, and that he found, quote, combat to be very flashy, but also kind of bland. Finally, the last reviewer that I'll be talking about is from Eurogamer's Chris Tapsell. And this guy pretty much just takes a fat on this game. Tapsell says, quote, I played as 3 of them in the preview. Batgirl and Red Hood in the early game scenarios, and Robin for a late game mission and boss fight. And I can say now with confidence that they are fine. Quote, it's faint praise, and I loathe to be harsh on Gotham Knights when we're still a few weeks away from launch. But at the moment, it's underwhelming. And underwhelming in terms of real substance rather than technical performance. To be fair, I know a lot of these reviewers weren't able to actually be flown out to Montreal, and they were playing the game on some type of streaming system, which made combat feel way off. Not to mention that pretty much all these people acknowledge that Gotham Knights is not trying to be Arkham, but it's hard not to compare the two. However, this does not really excuse all of the issues that these reviewers had, because some reviewers were actually flown out to Montreal and expressed the same concerns. Now, switching over to some YouTubers that were actually able to get hands-on with the game, these were the ones that intrigued me the most, because I feel like most of these YouTubers were big fans of the game, especially the ones that were flown out to the studio to play the game, so their reviews shouldn't be biased, right? But jokes aside, these YouTubers I felt were relatively honest. They were able to get, their opinions off and their concerns after dancing around and praising the game for a little bit, so. I know Uncaged Games said that
I played the game for I think about 2 hours, and all I was thinking to myself is, I would love if the speed of the combat was increased by just a little bit more. Like, it's okay, but when you're getting attacked by like 5 dudes and, your character's going like this, being a little bit quicker could be cool, right? I had fun playing it, like you can chain combos together and all that. I would have liked to be seeing a little bit faster of combat. That's just me.
I would say that's the majority of the people, but another big YouTuber who was covering the game, Caboose, had said that
the unfortunate reality though here with Gotham Knights is that it's sorely missing some form of a counter or a parry option. I don't mind the evade system, and I still had fun with what I played. Like I said, some characters are actually a good time to evade with, like Robin or Nightwing. They have cool animations. But having the ability to counter enemy attacks would maintain the pace of every combat encounter, rather than you having to halt your attacks and jump out of the way.
He had also brought up traversal, specifically with Red Hood and Robin.
His traversal is not the greatest in the world, admittedly, but if you use it sparingly, it can add a nice bit of flair for you to get from point A to point B around Gotham. I just don't know how much I'm going to use it to travel actual distances, or at least use up the 10 seconds that you have when you're doing the teleport, just because it slows down the pace a little bit. The jury's still out, though, on the Mystical Leap, okay? I'm still not 100% sure how I feel about it, but I think using it sparingly, similar to Robin's teleport, is probably the way to go.
So in other words, those two characters' traversals are shit. This review coming from Caboose scared me the most. Mainly because that is why. He's overall a pretty positive guy and usually doesn't have too many negative things to say regarding games, but I do think that he expressed some disappointment with both the combat and the traversal for those two characters. Another YouTuber by the name of SkillUp says that
my biggest disappointment with this game is how much of a step down it is visually. Arkham Knight released 7 years ago now, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that Arkham Knight looks approximately 8 billion times better than Gotham Knight does. You probably think I'm being hyperbolic, but I mean, here's a shot of the Gotham City skyline and some open world gameplay in Gotham Knights. You probably think it looks okay, right? Well, here's Arkham Knight 7 years earlier. Look at this fucking skyline. Hell, look at these fucking water effects in Arkham Knight and compare that to the water effects here 7 years later.
some other general issues that some people have expressed is that the RPG elements in collecting resources to craft better gear, it was a hit or miss for some people. I think that they kind of felt it was unnecessary and easily overlooked. I know SkillUp used the term smushed, but it seems to lack any depth, and it might just be, you know, one of the things that you have to deal with as you progress through the game. You know, just make sure that stats show green. Green mean good. Bigger number, good. Another issue that I had covered in the last video being voice acting.
Voice acting in the game. Their reaction.
So that's a thing. And finally, some other people mentioned that the city kind of felt relatively empty aside from some crimes and officers on the street. But by Inverse's Joseph Yaden, he says that it's filled with life.
Oh my god! Oh! Oh my fucking god!
As I mentioned before, these previews are pretty mixed. And as of recording this video, October 15th, news has dropped that Gotham Knights will run at a cool 30 frames per second. 30 frames. Xbox One Series X, PS5. Next gen game only. 30 frames. It's just an overall mess, and it makes me more concerned for this game's release. I desperately want this game to be good. I was praying that reviewers would silence my doubts that I had about the game, that they would say that the game doesn't play as awkwardly as it looks, and that everything was good. On one hand, it did seem to have people wanting to come back to see how the story pans out, but on the other hand, it didn't seem to have people super overly excited to get back in, except for... That's the last Caboose meme I'm making. No shade towards him, I just really like his reactions. I feel that most of these concerns that these reviewers have had while playing this game, I think it's taken some of that extra hype, you know, that new game feel. I think it's taken the wind out of their sails a little bit. Not everyone, obviously, but these similar complaints that talk about combat and traversal, and words being tossed around such as bland, routine, or slow. This early on in just the previews, that sounds kind of I mean, these are huge gameplay elements that can make or break a game. And if these elements are lacking, the story is going to have to do one hell of a job to carry this game. My biggest fear is that the game just ends up being okay, and that it goes on sale fairly quickly, because that will mean I will have spent full price on this game, plus a little extra change for those Jim Lee skins that I am a sucker for. I think that people's minds have just already been made up. There's the individuals who are absolutely in love with this game, 100% sold, and don't want to hear anything negative anybody else has to say. You have the people who are not touching this game with a 10-foot pole. Then you have people like me who are just, you know, in love with the Batman IP, love the Arkham games, and just want to experience Gotham again because it's been so long. So what do we do when we're not 100% sold? We settle for potentially mid and just buy the game anyways. And then there's people who, you know, are smarter than me and just are gonna wait it out until the game's released and then see how it goes from there. But overall, I'm just setting my expectations really low so I just won't be too disappointed. I want to close by saying this. I am in no way, by no means, trying to kill hype for anyone or trying to convince anyone to not like this game. I am simply just sharing some criticisms that legitimate reviewers have had. I am a huge fan of Batman and the Bat family. Nightwing is my guy, and I'm looking forward to playing as him in the up and coming weeks. I still think that the city, the story, and the customization looks really good. I'm loving those new skins, especially the Jim Lee ones. and I am avoiding all spoilers so I can experience this new spin on the story. So with that being said, with this game being so close to release, what are you most looking forward to, if there is any, and what are you most concerned by, if there is any? I think it's healthy to create some type of dialogue where things aren't just all bad and things aren't all good, because in reality, this game is and has been facing issues. Otherwise, the divide wouldn't be so significant. But you know, everybody has their opinions and, you know, has their own different tastes. I believe that this will be my last video covering the game prior to its release because everything has been said at this point about this game. So unless there's some other crazy trailer presenting some new news about the game, I won't be making anything until the game's release. So appreciate your guys' time. Thank you for watching and take care.